Good evening and welcome to Skits and Quibbles. I'm Precocious Lotus, also known as Dr. Audrey Tang if you watch Mental Health Matters. And this is the show where we celebrate everything going on in the arts. And with our charity partner, Click Arts Foundation, we also offer our platform to up-and-coming performers to get that visibility and that media experience free of charge. And tonight's guests, I know that this is a topic that is so close to their hearts. They run The Place, which is a wonderful, vibrant community theatre venue in the middle of Bedford. But before we meet them, please join me on the main stage. Now, last week, I taught you a little bit about robe play when it comes to burlesque. And so today I thought I would talk about boas, but actually this can be used. As you can see, it's a ribbon. It can be used with the robe, because if you're tying your robe together, you can use the same sort of moves. You can use the same moves with a boa. You can even use the same moves with a tie if you are gender bending a little bit. So the move I'm going to teach you is if you are taking off your robe, you can really play with this tie itself. So even as you're playing with it, you can pull it, and you can pull it in different ways. And as you undo it, you can roll it through your fingers like that. It's always very nice. If you wanted to get a little bit more sexiness in there, you can roll it across your chest as well. And then another thing that you can do whilst you're playing with it is you can do the flossing move, which I know for women, we don't really like it quite so much. But this is how you can do a sexier floss. You can just step over it. You can bend your knees. You can do a little squat over it. And again, you can pull that rope round and through, just like that. Now, if you are warmed up and you are ready to meet our next guests, they run The Place in Bedfordshire. It is a fabulous community arts venue. It's got a theatre, it's got rehearsal rooms, it's got a bar, it's got a place for the community to meet. Many groups use it. Let's see what it's all about. Welcome to our wonderful guests, Lissy Malt and Matt Baker from The Place in Bedford. It's lovely to have you here. Community theatre is so important. It's losing funding all the time, and yet it is the place where so many people get their experience in order to make it on the professional stage. Please tell me a little bit about The Place, how it got started, and how you form that vibrant heart of the community.
Fantastic. Thank you for having us. So how did we get started, Matt? It's a really long story.
Yeah.
It goes back many, many years.
It goes back to the early 1980s when Bedford Players Trust was formed, really to try and bring some professional theatre into Bedford, which there wasn't at the time. And they brought in at least once a year, an annual show, and quite often it was the Manchester Royal Exchange came in to do a show in Bedford. And then in 2002, the council offered the trust the use of what is now the Place Theatre, which was Bedford Boys Club originally.
Oh.
And the theatre opened in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
So we've just had our 21st birthday.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
And it's gone from there, hasn't it, really?
It has. I mean, I was actually there in 1984 at the age of 4.5. My parents were heavily involved with the community theatre at the time. So what the Players Trust did was they created a hub for the community theatre groups. I think there were 4 different groups at the time. And they got lots of the old temporary classroom buildings and put them together and made a bar area in the middle. And I can remember being there with the painting brush, as a 5-year-old. And then I remember at the end of the 90s when the building sadly burnt down, I remember standing there crying with all of my friends. So then in 2003, when this new venue became available, obviously that was really exciting. And I was back there with another paintbrush painting the toilet. So, I've been involved for a very, very long time. And I think I dragged Matt along and got him involved in about 2006.
That's right, yeah. That was
and we haven't let him go.
No.
Oh, well, that shows how valuable you are. Yeah. But I think that's amazing. So you are literally part of the infrastructure of the place. That's amazing. I mean, why is there such a need for grassroots venues, but like The Place, equipped to professional standards, which gives people that opportunity for that, I guess, to have the lights, to have the sound, to have all of that? What does do for people? Why is that so important?
We were discussing this yesterday, weren't we? You know, the price of a theatre ticket to go to London, or even to go to, you know, Cambridge, Oxford, Milton Keynes, the prices are really, really high.
And not just the tickets, the travel expenses
as
well.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have plenty of car park space, so it's easy. It's so easy to get to and to use. And I think it's that experience of being part of the community and of working together as part of a team. That is invaluable.
Definitely. And we offer, you know, a real mix of both professional and community events.
Yeah.
So people can come and watch professionals at work. Yes. They can volunteer and have first-hand experience sometimes working alongside professionals, but also then creating their own works with the community theatre. And they can get involved as an actor or behind the scenes or in the lighting box. And then sometimes they step up to direct, and sometimes people will come in thinking, I want to try this one thing, I want to work behind the bar, and then eventually you see that person step, oh, I'll give that a try, or I'll try that, or try that. Do you know what? I want to be on stage next time, and then they do, and it's such a wonderful journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think there's two things that you've tapped on there. The first is the journey, because that's so difficult in a professional space, because it's a bit like, no, that's your job and you're sticking to that job and you cannot move around. There's nothing else for you to do. But also when it comes to people watching and experiencing theatre, yes, the cost is prohibitive right now.
Yeah.
And the experience of being in the
Outrageous.
audience, I mean, how can you take that away from people? You're giving it back.
It's actually... one of the great things about the place is that it's a small venue and it's an intimate venue. Yes. So for a lot less, if you bought the cheapest tickets in a West End theatre, you'd be way up in the gods, miles from the stage, and you'd be looking at little ants running around on there. Whereas in the place, you're sitting the furthest back is row G, so you're like 7 rows back in the stalls in the West End Theatre. Yeah. So you've got an intimacy there that you cannot get anywhere else, actually.
I personally find that as a hard of hearing person and a lip reader, if I go to London, I have no option but to buy the most expensive seat right at the front to lip read. And the frustration I have if I've spent that money and I can't access the performance is... well, it makes me angry. So what I love about our venue is how intimate it is, how you can be close enough to hear, to understand, I feel like part of the action. Yes. And as a performer too, it's nice to have an intimate venue. You really feel like the people are there with you.
Yes, you can talk directly to your audiences. And then, especially when you're introducing young people to theatre, young children who don't know how to sit still and don't want to sit still, you can really engage with them in that sort of venue.
And we do sometimes try to have family performances that are relaxed, so the children know they get the experience of being in that environment, and they don't panic when the lights go down, because you don't have to put the lights down. You can keep it okay with them. We also host Jacker story sessions once a fortnight in the venue, where the team do storytelling to anyone who wants to come in, and it's a nice way of getting young children, families into the venue, so that they get used to the environment.
That's a huge point. We've had another guest on this show before who's said sometimes people feel, especially with the cost of tickets, that's not for me. I can't. Yeah. It's not my sort of thing. But it is, and that's what you're saying. Yeah,
it is. It can be. And where we can, we try to offer pay what you can events so that people can join in. And with our youth theatre as well, we offer a sliding pay scale, and we offer bursaries, so that if somebody can't afford to come, that shouldn't stop them. We want to be able to make the arts available for people and make it sustainable.
That's so brilliant. I mean, what brought you both to the arts? Because clearly you give so much, but what brought you in?
Well, you were kind of born into it, really.
I was literally born into it. At the age of about 6 months, my parents were in a production of The Importance of Being Earnest, The Importance of Being What's-His-Face. Yeah. And I don't know if you know the story, a baby gets found in a handbag. Oh! So in the publicity photographs, I was the baby in the handbag. Yeah. Then my mother played Cecily,
Cecily.
who played this part of Cecily in that production. So yeah, I was born into it. My parents were involved. My family were involved. I was involved in a youth theatre group throughout the 80s, 90s called Bedford Young Players, and it just stayed with me my whole life. You know, I've always remained involved in the community theatre. It's my favourite place. I met my husband there, and I met some of my best friends there as well. And yeah, it really is life.
I can hear that.
Yeah.
I can feel it. It's just so lovely. And Matt, what about yourself?
Well, totally different. I was 20 before I got involved in amateur theatre, and I'd only ever had one. I'd been to the theatre once in my whole life up until that point.
Really?
Yeah,
I
that was
didn't
a
know.
school trip. But a friend of mine was involved with. It was actually the Marionettes pantomime at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was involved in the lighting department, and he persuaded me to go along. And the first night I just watched it, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. It was completely blew me away. And when I went back the second night, the chief electrician said to me, "Watch what this guy does, because tomorrow you'll be doing that." So I was kind of thrown in at the deep end to become a member of the lighting team.
That's amazing.
And it took me 3 years before I got the nerve to actually audition for anything.
Really?
I was backstage, I did all kinds of other
I
stuff.
didn't realise it had taken that long.
Yeah.
It's bizarre to think of it now because Matt's one of the most incredible performers that we have,
Well,
and I've seen him play so many roles.
The thing is, at 19, 20, I had absolutely no self-confidence, so it completely changed my life. And by the time I'd started performing, I'd also been elected onto the committee and was involved in doing set design.
Wow.
And it just completely changed things. And I wanted to know everything about it and everything about theatre. So it started with musicals. I explored musicals, went to see musicals, bought the soundtracks, read books and everything else. And then I got into plays, Shakespeare, opera, and so on. And I'm still going through that process.
You never stop
Yeah,
learning.
still learning.
New,
And if
new
you
stuff.
see, Matt's house is the most fascinating place because he's got the best collection of books and plays and musicals and posters and artwork and absolutely everything. Lots of it theatrical.
And most of the furniture and ornaments and stuff have been on stage, probably more than I have, because it's you put your own stuff on the stage.
You do.
Put, of course, so we need to build a set for something. We need some stuff. Call Matt. Right, where can we take
I love this, and we're actually now going to see a short video clip of you both in Educating Rita, which is one of
Yes.
your most recent productions, and we're going to try and look at that and spot which stuff came from Matt's house.
most of it?
Over to you both.
You might as well have this.
What?
Well, it's actually it's a dress that I bought for an educated woman friend of mine. I've no idea if it fits. I was rather pissed when I bought it.
And this is what you call a scholarly neckline.
Well, when I chose it, I put rather more emphasis on the word woman than on the word educated.
All I've ever done is take from you.
E.M. Forster, and it's doubtful he would have forced her to do anything. Edward Morgan Forster was a committed homosexual.
Was it? Oh. So is that what his book's about? Being gay with Howard?
Welcome back to Skits and Quibbles. I'm here with Lissy Malt and Matt Baker, who you've just seen performing their little clip of Educating Rita, where a lot of the set came from Matt's house.
Yeah.
I think that is such a wonderful part of why we do community theatre. It's just that involvement. That's fantastic. So for both of you, let's start with Matt first. Why do you think the true value of the arts, not just the performance, not just watching it, but the confidence building, the self-expression, the creativity, why is that still not recognised, and what can we do about it?
Well, again, we were talking about this earlier in the week, and I think there's a general perception that the arts, all the arts, are kind of frivolous, and it's just entertainment, and that's all it is. And it's so much more than that. And how we get that message across to people is still a bit of a mystery. I think if we knew the answer to that, we'd be working in the West End or whatever. But we keep plugging away at it.
Yes.
We also said, didn't we, that ultimately the arts, it's not big business. You don't make money from art. And because you don't make huge amounts of money from art, people don't see it as important. But actually what it is, it's an incredible tool for people's confidence, self-awareness, well-being, connection. It's a lifeline for a lot of people.
Yes!
Yeah.
But it doesn't make huge money, so people see it as less important.
The funny thing is, on Mental Health Matters, we had Dr. Laura Gierger, who talks about workplace well-being. And she said about parenting.
Right.
Parenting, exactly the same thing. Doesn't make a lot of money,
Yes.
yet
Yes.
that's what you need
Yes.
for business.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing with the arts. You will bring out people who can work well together, who can get on in any team environment, who are flexible, who are adaptable, who have the confidence to stand up and say something when they need to.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart that that's not
Yeah.
seen because it's not bringing
The
in.
same.
Yeah.
And I'd just say, I don't think we'd mind as much being underfunded if we felt that the NHS and everything else was being properly funded.
Yeah.
I won't sidestep into that,
No.
but you all know what I'm saying.
I know we do.
You know what I'm saying.
We absolutely do. Now, let's talk about this building confidence.
Yeah.
Both of you performed so many characters. A little bit more of a personal question first. Which are your favourite characters to perform and why?
We talk about this a lot, actually.
Yeah.
We were talking about it earlier. I mean, for me personally, recently getting to play Rita was a favourite because I was lucky enough to play the mother in Blood Brothers when I was only 26, which is a bit odd because Rita's supposed to be 29 and I played her at 44. But anyway, I loved her. I loved her gumption. I loved her energy and excitement. It was a real joy to play that. And actually, one of my other most favourite characters I got to play was also when we were together on stage. We did a version of The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, a Western. And I was the woman in it, Miss Hallie, who's sort of like a Calamity Jane type character. You know, she starts all rough and ready and then she ends up, you know, turning into a bit more ladylike. And we played best friends in that. And I think that she was also one of my favourite characters because, again, she was really feisty. She had such gumption. And also because of her relationship with her friend in both of those plays. It was really nice to experience that with one of my real life friends on stage. We've both experienced that a lot with a lot of... I think they're two of my favourites. I could go on and on.
Yeah, so could I. I mean, I've got one that I always refer to is Topolsky in The Pillow Man, who is completely nuts. He's a police inspector,
Terrifying.
but he's really scary. But also there's Hector in The History Boys. There was Michael in Dancing at Lunacy, who's a narrator. There's several Shakespeare roles.
Oh, I didn't even start on
We
Shakespeare.
could go on. We could have a whole program on
Rosalind,
Shakespeare.
did you like it? Oh, yeah.
Well, we must.
But, I think the thing that I really like is when you've got a character where there's more than one thing going on and there's a bit of an inner conflict going on and you can play two different things and they maybe happen simultaneously because that's what we do in life. We live two separate things at the same time.
Yes, that is so true. Now, both of you mentioned these characters. You've got that feisty character. You've got a totally nuts character.
Yeah.
When you're playing a role which, say, isn't completely like you, I mean, you're actors, that's what you do, but how do you find that? How do you find that bit of the character to hook into?
It's in the script, really. I think if you really work on the script and get the lines right, very often it will tell you what the character is. It will tell you where the pauses are and what the character is feeling. And obviously you have to then relate that to your own experience, and you use your imagination.
Yes.
I have to say that
thing.
the hardest part, I think, in a way, I had to play was Isabel in Bull.
Right.
The only time I've ever played a really horrible, but I always get cast, I'm generally speaking cast as like the nicer character or the loving or whatever, but she was, I can't see the word, but she was a very unpleasant
nasty
lady, and,
yes.
and she's a bully. She's a bully, and in it she completely has to make this young man break down on stage. She bullies him to the point where he's lying on the floor at the end. And it was a horrible thing to do, actually, because it made me look inside at, you have to really think as a different person.
Yes.
And that person I really didn't like, so it was more of a challenge, because you think, God, these are things that I would never do. You have to really dig deep and find this really dark side of yourself and kind of push it, which is an interesting experience, and it does remind you, well, I'm very glad I'm not like that in real life.
Actually, that's a question I had for later, but since you bring that up now, how do you come down from a role, especially when it is a little bit like that?
Mostly you can switch off, I think. It maybe takes a couple of hours afterwards, but
it can be hard to sleep, the adrenaline anyway. I mean, I used to have a glass of wine to relax, but I don't drink anymore. So I now have to I have to take myself somewhere quiet and calm down, really.
Yes, yeah. No, it is one of those really difficult. Sometimes I've heard actors almost make a ritual of taking off the makeup and making it very clear that this is not me anymore.
This is not me.
There are kind of those rituals that you, like at the end of the show, we take the costume off before we go out to meet people.
Yes.
And then you go out and have a drink and you can talk to people.
Yes.
So there is a process that's kind of built in to how we do it.
But again, that's something which is so important for young people, anyone coming into the profession, to learn, because otherwise you can get very caught up in some very funny mind places, and that's not helpful. So with this next clip we're going to be looking at, it's a little bit of a compilation of all of the wonderful groups and people and events that you have going on in the place. You mentioned it earlier, Lissy, you yourself are hard of hearing, you lip read. How do you maintain that inclusivity? And maybe you can just tell me about some of the wonderful people that you have in the place.
Well, it's a constant work in progress. That's what I meant. Work in progress, actually. And it's something that I think everyone has to think about constantly in order for it to become normal. I mean, there's various ways that I try. For me personally, if I'm directing something, I am really, really strict about people warming up vocally so that they speak clearly on stage. Yes. Like, I get very wound up if people don't do it, because you need to make your performance as accessible as possible. So that's just one part of it. I also do some work with, I'm on the advisory board for Access Bedford, who provide support for deaf and hard of hearing people in Bedford, in Bedfordshire. And we have done some collaborative work with them in past. They've hosted some events with us. We've had deaf stand-up comedians at the venue, and we're hoping at some point to get them back again. So it's something we constantly try to work on. Our tech Dave, who's amazing, who taught himself everything, has recently said to me he thinks we might nearly be at the stage where he's found a way to create live captioning for performances.
Wow.
So that's the next step. So it's something we're always thinking about and trying to work on as best we can, really. Yeah. It doesn't mean no, you can't do these things perfectly all the time, but as long as people are trying, I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at some of the work that's going on in the place.
Which so disturbs you will only get worse.
In haste, so yeah, if you want to run up the middle,
video as well.
It's called a bilander. It is 7 feet tall and is pink, purple and blue.
Welcome back to Skits and Quibbles. We've been watching some of the amazing work being done at community venue The Place in Bedfordshire, and I have Lissy Malt and Matt Baker with me, who are so integral to this fabulous beating heart of the community. Now, for both of you, you know how difficult it can be to form a career in the arts, whether that is even at the point of community theatre or helping with on the fringes, let alone West End and so on. What would you suggest to someone for whom this is a passion and they really care.
My personal suggestion is don't fall back on one particular area or one talent. And this is something I'm saying to my daughter right now, who's really keen to go into performing arts. You could, if you're an actor, that's fantastic. You might need extra strings to your bow. Learn about so for example, at least learn to sing, learn an instrument, but also perhaps learn some marketing skills so that you've got something to fall back on. If you're having a quiet time when you haven't got any work, you could run someone's social media for them, learn how to write press releases, learn about finance. You know, I think it's really important in the arts to recognise that very often, well, I think in a lot of careers nowadays, you don't just stick at one thing. So the more skills that you have and acquire, the more employable you are, because you will have more options in the long run. So you might go into one aspect of the arts and think, right, I want to perform, but end up being a director or end up running a venue, for example. So my personal opinion is get as much experience as you can, and where's the best place to get that experience?
Community theatre.
Community theatre. Learn it all. Come and talk to us. Find out from people.
Yes, come and talk to you, absolutely.
Yeah.
And because you started in tech, so...
Yeah, that's right. And I think one of the things, just listening to Lissy then, I think even if you make it and get into an art school or a drama school and become a professional actor, the vast majority of professional actors are not working in their theatre all the time. No. They have long periods of unemployment when they have to go and wait at tables. So having more strings to your bow is really important.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's also, when you talked about earlier, you worked your way up in a way. It's about those other skills of being reliable and being capable and learning and listening and all of those other bits that are so important to any job. Now, the arts can be competitive. We know that. How do you keep your resilience strong?
Matt.
Trying.
Well, I mean, I think inevitably when you're involved as much as we have been over the years, that you get periods when you get fed up and you get depressed and you think, why am I doing this? And then you have an experience like we had with Educating Rita, and you're on stage and the audience are loving it, and you think, this is why we do it. And then that's fed us now
and
for the next year.
And then you finish the show and think, oh, what am I going to do now? Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, for me, the only and the best source of resilience is just the people that I work with, the community, and going into work, being together with an amazing group of people who help each other and find solutions, look out for each other.
I like that. That's all about collaboration.
I think, and actually that's the key word, because I think there's a view of actors as being, dare I say the word, love is, and being very prima donnas and selfish, and you can't be that.
And it's really not like that at all,
really
actually,
like
is it?
And what I've learned, and what I think a lot of people are surprised by when they come into theatre, is how collaborative it is. You are part of a team, and when you're on stage in a cast, you are part of that team, and that continues over into everything that we do. We're working as a team now, although we've all got our own separate roles at the place. We work together. We have a meeting on a Monday where we just sit and talk about what's going on,
and help each other out.
And that's the key. That even when you're getting, that you feel the world's on your shoulders, you're not alone. You're never alone in the theatre, because there's always somebody else you can talk to who understands exactly what you're going through.
And lots of really good coffee.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, on that note, we're going to take you both through our Great Dream Challenge. Welcome to the Great Dream Challenge. Now, this is what we give all our guest stars, because this is all about well-being. It's the Action for Happiness Great Dream, and they're 10 keys to healthier living and happier living. And what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to give you 1 minute, and in turn, we're going to go with Lissy first, then Matt. You're going to tell me what you do for each of those, which will boost your happiness and boost your well-being. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay, let's go. Lissy first. Giving.
Giving, doing things for others, reading to the community at Jack a Story every fortnight.
Relating, Matt.
Working with our volunteers who we rely on so much and getting them to do stuff with the audience, connecting with the audience.
Exercising, Lissy. Brilliant.
Working out with my trainer, Nav. Hi, Nav.
Living life mindfulness, awareness.
Again, it's being aware of what the audience want and providing them with what they need.
Love it. Lissy, trying new things.
Learning BSL level 2.
Oh, brilliant. Matt, having a goal to look forward to.
We have shows which have a date when we're going to put them on,
Yeah.
so you have to be ready for it.
Yes, resilience, building yourself up.
Making a cup of coffee and chatting to your workmates about how to do that.
Excellent. Matt, emotions, looking for the good in things.
That's... we have to do that, otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And acceptance, being comfortable with who you are, Lissy?
Mantra every morning, telling myself I'm great.
Time is up, time is up. You got to A, which is very good. It puts you into second place on the league.